How you doing, Met fans? Welcome to another edition of the Terry Collins Show, presented by Tunnel the Towers, supporting America's greatest heroes. Donate just $11 per month by going to t2t.org. That's T2T.org. I'm John Arezzi. We got a jam-packed show lined up for you this week, courtesy of Coachs Collectibles, a member of the 1986 World Champion New York Mets. Howard Johnson will join us live to talk about his new podcast, about the 86 Mets, his wonderful baseball academy right here in Middle Tennessee, and, of course, the 40th anniversary of that magical 86 team. Hojo joins us later in the show. On part one of a special Talking with TC, Laura Albanese will dive deep into the career of Terry Collins with the man himself, an insider's look at the life of our own TC. We will have a new Never Forget story with Al Leiter coming up as well, and we'll give you the opportunity to add some very rare Howard Johnson memorabilia to your collection from our partners at Coachs Collectibles. But let's get right to the leadoff, and today we bring on one of the most respected journalists in the game, spanning close to 30 years. Ken Davidoff began as the Yankees beat writer for the New Jersey publication The Record, spent 11 years at Newsday as the national baseball columnist, and later became a daily baseball columnist for the New York Post until March of 2022. Davidoff also served as the former president of the Baseball Writers Association of America and was a frequent contributor on ESPN and MLB Network. In 2022, Davidoff stepped away from the daily grind and transitioned into a writing and journalism position as an adjunct professor at Endicott College in Beverly, Massachusetts. This year, he released his first book, 101 Lessons from the Dugout, co-authored by Dr. Harley Robart. The book has received universal acclaim. It's our pleasure to welcome Ken Davidoff to the Terry Collins Show. How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing great, John. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. I'm hanging in there, just trying to, see what's going on with the Mets. Of course, this is a Mets show, but it's got me puzzled. It's got me frustrated. And it's got me a little angry. But we're not going to spend a lot of time on the Mets today.
No bueno.
Well, it's so great to have you on this book. Everything that has been written about it, the reviews that have come in, it just seems to be everywhere. I've never seen a book tour like this before, and you're doing all the work and getting all of these appearances. It's wonderful.
Thank you, John. This is it's really been fun for me. As you said, I got away from the grind 4 years ago now, and it's just been fun to reignite relationships and to talk about a book that I am really proud of. It was a bit of a left turn for me in the sense that I did write hundreds of columns about the daily travails of the Mets and the Yankees and the daily issues with Major League Baseball. So to take a step back from that and write a book, we're just embracing the beauties of baseball and softball has been very energizing.
Yeah, and the fact that it's really designed to be it obviously libraries for kids, baseball academies across the country. The theme of the book and the message of the book is really like, take these lessons that you learn from the dugout and you can apply them to your everyday life, which is a really great concept. And I don't even remember if there's ever been a project like this that kind of brings these two together of, what you do in the dugout, you could relate to in real life.
Yeah, so I have to credit my co-author, Harley Robart. You mentioned his name. Harley is, you've never heard of Harley, John, I'm pretty confident. He is a parenting expert and a longtime pediatrician. He retired a couple years ago. And Harley loved baseball and softball, coached his kids, Little League, high school, and also dealt with young people. So it was that perspective, those two perspectives of seeing young people, seeing their daily challenges and triumphs. So he came up with the critical idea here of taking the lessons from the dugout and translating them to the rest of your life. And then by serendipity, we had the same literary agent, Lisa Leshny. She paired us up, and Harley said, Ken, I really think your perspective would add a real element to this book. And me having covered the game at the highest level for a very long time, So let's kind of blend our perspectives and try to make this book happen.
And the book is out; it's doing well. It has to be doing well, and just the people, the insiders in baseball that have embraced it, that have given it glowing reviews, and even the forward of the book was written by David Wright. That's amazing too. David's such a wonderful guy, and tell us a little bit about how David got involved in the forward of the book and your relationship with David, and give us a little backstory on how that happened.
Sure. So the first time I met David Wright was at the Futures game in 2004 at what was then known, I think, as Minute Maid Park at that point in Houston.
Yeah.
It was I think it was on no more Enron Field by then. I think it was Minute Maid Park. But David, eager, I think he was 21, 22 years old at that point, and very close to getting called up to the big leagues. And that was the first time I had the privilege of meeting him. He got called up, I believe it was within a week of that game, to the big leagues. And so covered him for the entirety of his career as a baseball columnist for Newsday and the New York Post. And I just never met a finer person. In all my years of covering the game, never met a finer human being. Just what you saw was what you got. He was just cordial and polite and respectful, but also tough and great teammate. So when I huddled with Harley and we were talking about, all right, Ken, it's your job to get us a big name to write the forward, right? That was my responsibility. And I immediately thought of David because at this point, David had retired because of the back injury and was living quietly out in Southern California. And I knew, thanks to Jay Horowitz's podcast, that he was coaching his kids. So I thought, well, this is perfect. Someone who's interacting with young people now and someone with David's street cred. So I reached out to David through, with Jay's help and explained the concept of the book. And this is what we'd like you to do. And he quickly signed on. And I've thanked David personally for this. I think we have a photo of me with David in Port St. Lucie this year, holding up the book. And once we had David on board, that gave us street credibility so that Lisa, my agent, could shop it to publishers. Look, David Wright supports this book. He's putting his name on this book. So I will be eternally grateful to David. And at the same time, I wasn't at all surprised that he was willing to do this.
Yeah, and the fact that he's coaching his kids, and that's why I think it's so important that there's so many former baseball players that are out there helping kids today. Like I was telling you before we started taping, Howard Johnson is right here in Franklin, Tennessee, with his academy that he runs with his son, and so I think this is a book that. And I'm sure that you're planning, a tour, tours of perhaps these baseball academies and getting together, because it's so important for the kids of today to be able to be mentored and coached by people they respect. And if those coaches can also help mentor these kids and apply the lessons that are in your book to not only their competition and their athleticism and their playing of a game to real life, that's an important message today that I think everybody can relate to.
I agree, John. And on one hand, I love that the game is so popular among young people and that there are these academies and all these great people, great things happening for the future of the game. And I guess what we hope is that we acknowledge, okay, a very small percentage of these young people are actually going to make it to the major leagues or even to the minor leagues or even to Division I or even to Division III. So our hope is that they can still get so much out of this experience, right? Playing these beautiful games.
Yeah. The book has received strong endorsements from baseball icons as well. And I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up a few of them: Reggie Jackson, Bernie Williams, Joe Girardi, and Reggie saying, quote, "This is a book that needs to be on the shelf of every young player and fan, every coach, and in every library." Very strong endorsement by Mr. October.
Very, very grateful to Mr. October, excuse me. And I got to know Reggie by the time I started writing, covering baseball in the mid-'90s. Reggie was already retired. But Reggie spends a lot of time still around the game. He's turning 80 in a a few weeks. God bless him. He's still got the swagger. He's still Mr. October. And so I got to know Reggie well enough over the years because of his time with the Yankees, and that I felt comfortable reaching out to him and saying, "Hey, Reggie, if I sent you what I'm writing, would you consider endorsing it?" And he said yes. I snail mailed him a copy of our manuscript out in California, and then a week or two later, we connected. Said, "Yeah, I like this. Let's I'll do a blurb for it."
Wow. Well, this book is certainly something that is really, you're everywhere, and I can't keep emphasizing that enough, because every 2-3 times a day, you're thanking this person, you're on this podcast, you're on this TV show, you're on a national TV
It's
show.
obnoxious, John. And just say it. It's obnoxious.
But it works because it's about awareness. And, everything today in society is kind of niche also. Everybody has their own listeners, everybody has their own followers. So the fact that you have this broad stroke, you're painting this enormous scope of different people, from whether they have 100 listeners on their show to hundreds of thousands, which are like the MS Nows and the Morning Joe appearance that you did. It's amazing what you're doing, and it all stems from you're one of the most respected journalists in baseball over the past 3 decades. You started with the record. Was that the Bergen record at one time? And because I'm a Long Island guy, I was born and raised in New York, and I live in Nashville now. But I remember the record and the reporters associated there. And of course, Newsday was my hometown paper. I remember you from there, and of course, the New York Post. And how were you able to establish yourself back in the day when you were just getting started, and really became one of the most respected insiders covering the Yankees over all those years?
Yeah, John. So I've been citing a lesson from the book, and it's chapter 23, small ball, and just how you can use that, which we actually saw in full force this weekend in the Yankees-Rays series. The Rays used a bunch of bunts to beat the Yankees, but with the small ball concept to the rest of your life. And I very much applied that strategy to my career, because I knew, first game I covered was 1995 at Shea Stadium. I was 24 years old, and I sure as heck wasn't going to step in there and start, proposing controversial columns or try to break news. I was just trying to find my way. Like I still remember meeting Jay Horwitz for the first time at that game in May of 1995. And I just tried to get comfortable. I tried to establish relationships, introduce myself to people. And, Joe McIlvaine was the Mets GM back then. I talked with Joe within the last year. I love Joe. And Dallas Green, may he rest in peace, was the Mets manager. But just getting to know people and building my way up, like, okay, now here's this exclusive interview I got, nothing huge, but good, insightful interview by Davidoff here. And then we would write your Yankees notebook or your Mets notebook, look at that 4th note that Davidoff had. Again, not going to make Sports Center, but that's an interesting note. And then just build your way up to where I did start to break bigger stories, and to where I got promoted to columnist and could write confidently controversial columns. Okay, and then look, when you take big swings, sometimes you miss, right? So I would miss on a column, or so that's how I built my way up. I think just trying to stay humble and use my relationships as the foundation.
How was your relationship like with George Steinbrenner?
Oh man, so I started. Well, I think the first time I spoke to George was probably 1997 on the phone. And I mean, he was just so terrifying. And I remember still the phone, I called the office down in Tampa. It was the off season, the hot stove league between 97 and 98. And that first time, yeah, it's George. What do you want? Right out of, right. I mean, Larry David's impersonation was pretty accurate, actually.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I asked him about that day, and I didn't get any bombshells. But over time, again, I became more comfortable and confident in dealing with George. And so really the last, 5-6 years when he was really active, and then unfortunately his health declined. But he was a blast, and also covering him was a blast because anything was possible. Any trade, any free agent signing, any crazy behind the scenes incident that many Yankees employees were all too eager to share, as long as you didn't put their name on it.
Yeah, but you're also very fortunate to be covering the New York Yankees during, at least in our lifetimes, one of the most incredible run with the 3 World Series championships in a row, and that was a magical time for the Yankees franchise. And I know they beat the Mets in the 2000 Subway Series, World Series, which I wasn't too happy about. But you can't deny the magic of what those years were, and you right there in the middle of it. What was your favorite moment over the course of the span of a time period that you enjoyed most covering the game?
Well, John, I'll give you 2 answers if that's okay. I'll keep them short. Sure. So the obvious one was the 2001 World Series. Just against Arizona. That was such an emotional time in the city, in particular, after 9/11. And the Diamondbacks beat them up in the first 2 games in Arizona. They come back to New York. Yankees won a close Game 3. Game 4, down to their last out, down 2. Tino Martinez, game-tying home run. Derek Jeter, Mr. November, walk-off home run. So then Game 5 again, down 2, down to their last out. And Scott Brocious, who was about to retire, he was pretty much cooked. It's another game-tying 2-run home run. And the emotion in that ballpark was off the charts because the people were feeling this mix of joy and grief, grieving all the people they knew who died in 9/11. I lost some people on 9/11. I stood up in shock like that. But I also got teary-eyed just thinking about what all these fans had been through, and the whole city had been through collectively. And then I'll share a smaller moment with you, John, that I never, to me, just reflected how amazingly close that team was. So this was, if you remember back in 1999, there was all the end of the century stuff. Not even talking
Y2K,
about, not even talking about the fear that the whole world would collapse, but just more like pausing to look back on the century and the millennium, for that matter. But ESPN had this Sports Century show. It was like a series of documentaries. And so the Yankees were in Baltimore before a game in the clubhouse there. And during the time when media was allowed in there, and Jeter and Posada started talking loudly enough that people could hear them. And they just started joking about the Sports Century series. I wish I could remember. It was just like, oh, they should have done this person. And just silliness. They should have done this person. But like their 2-person conversation organically grew to probably 15 guys on that team, and everyone piping in and laughing, and just how much that group enjoyed each other's company. And I really think that has an impact on a team. And I think, they, at that point, they'd already been through 2 championships together and a fair amount of adversity, and with 2 more to come. And I just thought that was so magical and really spoke to that team's greatness.
Yeah, certainly. What a magical team. But, you brought up the 9/11, and this is the 25th anniversary. I met you through Peter Haskell, who works for Tunnel of Towers Foundation. And the foundation did a documentary that's out now called Never Forget. I don't know if you had a chance to see it yet.
I'm sorry.
I'll send you a link to it.
Please.
And because, we interviewed almost 25 members of the Mets, Yankees, front office personnel, reporters. I didn't know you back in the day. I wish it was brought up because we interviewed like Laura Albanese, who's, a rising star in journalism today. And she was in school and she recalled her story about what happened. And it was a time in America that, you never forget. And it's 25 years later. So I'm sure that one of those magical moments when you talk about 2001 was President Bush and him throwing out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium, the Piazza home run. There's so many memories, and it's 25 years ago. But the key is to never forget. And what do you remember most about that time period when that happened?
Yeah, I just remember just being so emotional about everything, John, because as I said, I lost people. actually, like my father, who wound up passing away in 2015, like almost got hired at Cantor Fitzgerald a couple years prior to 9/11, and like
Wow.
certainly would have died that day, no doubt. But because he didn't get that job, he wound up living another 13 years. So just crazy. And yeah, from a work perspective, it's interesting, John. The first game I covered back, and I remember this very explicitly, I was the Yankees beat writer for Newsday. As you know, the Mets, well, both teams opened on the road, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, both teams opened the road.
The Mets came home. The Yankees opened up first, I think.
Right, but no, when the Mets opened in Pittsburgh, the Mets flipped the series around. Like the Piazza home run was not their first game after 9/11; it was their first home game.
Their first home game, right?
Right. So initially, both teams opened on the road, and my assignment was to go meet the Yankees in Baltimore. But on the way down to Baltimore, stop in Philly because the Phillies were playing the Braves, and the Braves were going from Philly to New York to play the game that wound up being the Piazza game. So I hope I'm not too confusing my details.
No.
So my assignment for that night was to talk to Bobby Cox, talk to the Braves. I remember back in the day they had a very media friendly team. Brian Jordan was a great guy. Glenn was a great guy. Chipper, and talk to the Braves about how they feel about playing the first game back in New York. And they were all so helpful and so great. And Bobby Cox has gone on to say, if we ever had to lose one game, I'm glad we lost that one, the Piazza game. So I remember that, and that was very powerful. And then, did the Yankees in Baltimore. So I was not there for the Piazza home run, unfortunately. But like I can watch that replay 1,000 times, and every single time, John, like I get teary-eyed because you see the expressions on the fans' faces. It's like they didn't know they could still get this excited over a home run, right? Because we had been through such hell for those 10 days. You remember what it was like. And here's the people, like, so this mix of delight and also like shock, like, oh my God, I can't believe I can still be this happy over something as insignificant as a ball game. So that's what stands out to me most of all. And then that kind of carried through. And, it was just so, I can't even come up with the right word, but the idea that like the Mets kind of started it with a Piazza home run, and then they made their run at a playoff spot, but then they fell short. And then the Yankees kind of picked up the baton, right? Like the Yankees were very close to being eliminated without winning a playoff game that year against Oakland. But then the Jeter flip play, and then they steamrolled over Seattle, who had won 116 regular season games. And then that epic World Series, even though the Yankees ultimately lost, just those moments in that series were so mind-blowing. So that's what, you mentioned the President Bush. That was unreal. Like that, I remember like you had to get there very early that day because everyone knew President Bush was coming. I probably got to the ballpark by 2, for the 8 o'clock first pitch, because of the security concerns and all that. And just, he was so majestic, right? Like, and this was at a simpler time in our country, when we didn't all hate each other. And for President Bush to just stand up on the mound and throw the perfect strike, like, again, just touched my heart so deeply.
All these backstories are in the documentary. Never forget how baseball helped New York heal. I think you'll enjoy. Brian Jordan was in it, and it's like I can't wait to get it to you. So
I can't wait to watch it. Thank you.
But your career has also been, so wonderful to take a look at the depth of your career, and during your career, also you had the prestigious honor of being the president of the Baseball Writers Association of America. 2010 to 11, and you headed their New York chapter for another few years after that. Describe what it's like to be the president of the Baseball Writers Association of America, and what responsibilities did you have as president?
Well, it's interesting, John. So the responsibility is sort of to be the point person for the entire organization, which is probably still around 500, 600 people. So be a point of contact. Well, you and the Secretary Treasurer, who has been Jack O'Connell for a very long time, between Major League Baseball, the Players Association, and any other interested entities. As it turned out, the job, every 5 years, the job of president becomes a little more relevant because there is collective bargaining going on. And mine was one of those 5 years. So I sat in a room with Rob Manfred when he was the number 2 under Bud Selig, and a gentleman named Pat Courtney, who has been with Major League Baseball for a very long time, kind of heading their communications, and the late Michael Weiner, who was the head of the Players Union at that point, and Tony Clark, who was a rising star at the union, becoming Michael's number 2, and then took over, succeeded Michael after Michael's passing until recently when Tony resigned. But sitting in that room with those people, as well as a gentleman, Greg Boris, who did the comms for the PA, and Jack O'Connell, and I wouldn't call it a negotiation per se, because ultimately we didn't have that much say in what the media access rules would be. But Michael and Rob were both very open and eager to hear our perspective on why we thought, we should get the access we should get. Michael in particular wanted some changes, and there wound up being some changes. So that was pretty intense doing that. The fun part of being the President Association, which is every year, is you get to go to the Hall of Fame inductions in Cooperstown, and you stay at the Otesaga, which is the glorious hotel where all the Hall of Famers stay. And you're a part of everything, all the parties and all the festivities. I was in the room with a bunch of Hall of Famers and on the bus with a bunch of Hall of Famers. And that part was really, really fun.
Very cool. When you left the New York Post in 2022, you were candid about leaving and the burnout after almost 30 years, 24/7 on the road constantly. Was there a specific tipping point for you when you said, "I've had enough of this"?
Well, it's interesting. It was in one sense, it was an evolution of a few years where I just realized, I'm finding this job more and more difficult. Mm-hmm. I'm finding more and more stressful. And even my wife and son were both yeah, you're cranky, dude. You're not the most pleasant person to be around. And so my wife kind of planted the seed, you don't have to keep doing this job. You can, you've been away from home for a quarter of a century, for my son's entire life at that point. We'd welcome you back home, and maybe you'd be nicer. So, and then more specifically in 2021, I remember a day I was back in the press box. It was my last full year working. And there's a wonderful gentleman named Laurel Preeb. He's actually Bud Selig's son-in-law, but he has his own baseball bona fides. He was the traveling secretary for the 1987 Minnesota Twins champions. So Laurel was at the ballpark that day. He helped out with the official scoring. He just kind of hung around and did some random tasks for Major League Baseball. And he said, "Hey, Ken," it was before the game during batting practice. I was up in the press box. "Laurel, good to see you. Ken, what's up with you?" And I had gotten so sour at that point. I said, Laurel, just watching this garbage, kind of waving my hand to the field. And I could see Laurel was taken aback, garbage. He's well, I happen to like baseball or something like that. And it kind of occurred to me that. It was you know what, man? If you're that unhappy being here, then you're not doing yourself or the New York Post readers, any good. So maybe it's time for someone else to have this job. So I quit about 6 months after that.
Yeah, and then you went from the press box straight into the classroom.
Yes.
And Endicott College with, I guess, zero prior teaching experience.
Correct.
What surprised you most about that transition? And how do you see your baseball journalism experience directly benefiting the next generation of journalists and writers?
Yeah. So what surprised me most, that's, I think just, look, there's an art to teaching, right? I think I was able to, I faked it until I made it. And I think what helped was I was open with the students. My first semester started in January of 2023, and I taught sports journalism at Endicott College. And I said to them, "Look, I don't have any experience teaching, but I know the material. I'm going to bring in some good guest speakers for you. And my hope is you'll find me approachable, and we'll connect, and I'll help you." And thankfully that all worked out. And as I move forward, I'm now in my 6th semester teaching. I have learned how to teach. I've learned how to you do exercises. You just figure out you play games. Excuse me. And I think I have credibility not only among the students, but among the faculty, because I'm a lowly adjunct, and there's all these full-time faculty with doctorates and who have written papers. And I think because there's appreciation for what I've done, and I can share a lot of war stories, if you will, from my career with these people. And even, like someone will mention the name in class, like, oh, I know that person, so I think that helps. I think just having that credibility.
Wow. And what advice would you give, in today's landscape, in the media landscape, where there seems to be a declining level of trust with journalism across all fields, and, more journalists are quietly probably burning out like you did after, a quarter century in the game. But what advice would you give to an aspiring or young reporter who decides that this could be a career path for them?
Well, first of all, John, I would encourage them, because I think our country needs journalists, and even even in sports, we need sports journalism. And I do think it's easier now to get in the door than it was when I was their age because of the internet, right? Because of podcasts and
a lot of outlets,
a ton of outlets. It's harder to make a career out of it now. That's the difference.
Yeah.
There's a pyramid, so it's tight at the top. But the advice I give to them, I give them one piece of time-less advice and one piece of timely advice. And the time-less advice is don't get outworked. Like there's so many reasons why you're not going to get opportunities you want. And it's not going to be fair. It's going to be because someone has a family connection or a college connection, or, you just, for whatever reason, you don't vibe with the interview. It doesn't happen for you. But never lose out on an opportunity because you get outworked. And my more timely piece of advice is be versatile. I managed to do what I did, John. With writing, as if I were a ball player, I would have been like a 1.5 tool ball player because I could certainly write. I could do that. But then nowadays you need to write, you need to be able to shoot video, you need to be able to perform in front of a camera, you need to edit that video for a social media post. There's audio, editing software, right? There's so many. So the more tools you have in that regard, the better your chances are of succeeding.
Yeah, that's good advice. And of course, the book, here it is. It's 101 Lessons from the Dugout. It's available wherever you get your books. Is there an audio book on the horizon by any chance for this?
I don't think it's at the risk of hurting our chances. Like I think it's a tough audio book just because it's not a page turner, right? It's short, digestible chapters.
They're lessons.
They're lessons. It's not John Grisham. So, but if anyone's open to it after I've denigrated it, give me a call.
Yeah, gotcha. Why don't you let us know where people could find you on your social media, and if you want to promote any upcoming appearances you may have. And of course, the book can be purchased, I guess, on Amazon and everywhere else you buy your books.
Amazon, where you buy your books. The publisher is Bloomsbury, Bloomsbury. You can also buy the book there. So, John, you're very kind. I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, the 21st, at Solid State Books. There is a private event in New York City on Wednesday, the 22nd, that I have all over my social media. I'm on all the major accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And then I'll give you a couple more if that's okay. Saturday, May 2nd, I will be at the Book House of Stuyvesant Plaza in Albany. And then 2 weeks after that, Saturday, May 16th, Northshire Bookstore in Manchester Center, Vermont. So I would love to see any and all at these places and more to come.
Well, we got to get you down here to Tennessee. This is such a big baseball area. And, with our connection to Hojo now, maybe there's a synergy that could be put together. There's so many wonderful baseball players that come from this area, as with Vanderbilt and it's just incredible. But I want to thank you for your time today, and I want to thank Peter Haskell from the Tunnel to Towers Foundation for getting us together, and with Jay Horowitz as well, because when I speak to Jay all the time.
Oh, my sympathies. I'm kidding. I love Jay.
Like short and sweet with a text.
I love Jay.
Jay was so instrumental in helping with the documentary for Tunnel
Yeah.
of Towers, and such a believer in that. But he has absolutely nothing but wonderful things to say about you. So those two gentlemen, Peter and Jay, appreciative of the introduction from Peter, and I wish you the best. And it's been a pleasure talking to you. Really is an honor of mine to speak to someone with everything that you've done in your life and your career. So thank you so much for that.
John, thank you. It's a pleasure to get to know you, and any friend at TC is a friend of mine. So just continued success with this.
I forgot to ask you a TC story, so maybe we'll follow up
Next time.
When I get you on with him.
In person in Tennessee or on here, whatever works. But
Absolutely.
I got plenty of TC stories.
Awesome. All right, Ken, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, John. Take care.
Great lead off with Ken Davidoff. Of course, his book is out there, and really it's getting just universal acclaim, and we congratulate Ken on that. I do want to take the time to plug next week's lead off, as we have booked Evan Roberts from WFAN's Evan and Tiki show, and he'll be here with Sal Licata. So with the horrific way the Mets have really started the season, and them heading on this road trip this week to the West Coast and then in Chicago, next week we should have some really good insights, maybe some explosive comments from Evan and Sal. Getting them together is going to be so much fun. So we look forward to that. That'll be on our leadoff segment next week. But as we do in each and every week, we update you on the amazing mission the Tunnel to Towers Foundation continues to perform. This week, I'll be attending a special event in my town right here in Franklin, Tennessee, where T2T will award 3 mortgage-free smart homes to deserving recipients who served our country. But T2T is doing so much more this month. They're breaking ground on 2 new veterans' villages, one on my home town, Long Island, takes place April 17th, and the other recently held in Jacksonville, Florida on April the 9th. In March, there was a groundbreaking for a veterans village in Charlotte. Combined, the 3 facilities are going to provide stable housing and comprehensive services for nearly 300 veterans. Tunnel to Towers is committed to eradicating veteran homelessness. The foundation has provided more than 17,000 vets with housing. That number is correct, 17,000 vets. You can join them on their mission to do good by going to t2t.org. And the Tunnel to Towers Foundation is proud to be providing mortgage-free homes to the families of 7 U.S. service members that have been killed during this Iran war. Each of the 7 is survived by young children, and this is a part of the Tunnel to Towers mission. If the service member is killed in the line of duty and they leave behind a young family, the foundation will pay off their mortgage or buy them a home. But they can't do this without your help. Please donate $11 a month at t2t.org. And earlier this year, Tunnel to Towers unveiled its new scholarship program, Every Child Helped by the Foundation's Gold Star Family Home Program, Fallen First Responder Home Program, or Smart Home Program, can go to college or trade school for free. And by the end of the year, T2T will have delivered so many of those scholarships to those deserving kids. We will be back with part 1 of the special Talking with TC, where we turn the tables on Terry and talk to him. This multi-part, in-depth interview was conducted by our correspondent and Mets beat writer for Newsday, analyst for SNY's Baseball Night in New York, Laura Albanese, and she'll give us all a great inside look at the life and career of Terry Collins. We will have that for you to enjoy right after this word from all-time Mets great and Hall of Famer Mike Piazza on behalf of Tunnel to Towers.
Mike Piazza.
Good to see you.
I want to bring you back to 9/11. 10 days afterwards, you're playing Atlanta. New York was down, and you hit that miraculous home run.
I was very blessed to be in the right place at the right time and have a lot of people pulling for me.
And it made a difference.
Just $11 a month will go a long way to support our first responders, soldiers, and veterans. Go to t2t.org for more information on how you can help.
So I'm Laura Albanese, and I'm here with Terry Collins. We're going to talk a little bit about baseball and a little bit about life. How are you doing?
I'm good, Laura. Thanks for coming out on our another beautiful day here in Florida.
It's absolutely stunning. I've really, really enjoyed spring training so far, and I've enjoyed talking baseball with you. I've always wanted to know, where did your passion for baseball get started?
Well, I started when I was a little boy. My father was a real good athlete. He was originally from Toledo, Ohio, and went to Midland, Michigan to play fast pitch softball for Dow Chemical Company. And it was a small town, and Dow wanted to have something to entertain the people. So they put this fast pitch softball team together, and they ended up winning the national championship a couple of times. And so my dad was a very good basketball player. He went to college, to play basketball before the war came up. And so I just was born and raised in sports, and I loved to play them all. And just it so happened that baseball was the game that helped me the most.
What was your team growing up?
Tigers.
The Tiger. Yeah.
I was from Michigan, and so I was a Tiger fan. Of course, that was back when the Yankees were winning most of the championships. But so I knew all about the Yankees also. But my guy was Al Kaline, and in my life, how many times are you blessed to be able to go meet your hero?
When'd you meet him?
Well, I met him in spring training one year, and we talked. And then before that, I had been introduced to him in Detroit when I went in when I was in the American League.
Mm-hmm.
Al was out there, and somebody introduced me. But then the next spring, I got to talk to him, and then the following spring, when I was managed with the Mets, Al actually came over to the visiting dugout during batting practice, wanted to say hi to me. And I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, like you're coming to me.
Al Kaline's coming over to say hi to me. Yeah, so that's what pro baseball's about. The relationships you form and the people you get to meet. I had to this day have breakfast with Sandy Koufax once in a while. So, for heaven's sakes, can't get better.
It's just such a cool journey. But you're playing in high school. You're doing all these things. At what point do you think, okay, maybe this is a career for me? Like, this is what I can do.
Well, I had played in my hometown. I had played with a couple of guys who had signed to play minor league baseball, and it was coached by a guy who had played minor league baseball with the Red Sox, and learned a lot about how to play the game with some of those guys. And and I started to get a little older. Some guys that had played some minor league ball were on these adult teams that I was playing with. So, and when I went to college, I played in some of these college summer leagues where all those guys were going to get drafted. A lot of them had been drafted and had not signed or didn't want to sign yet. But so that was kind of when you say, hey, geez, maybe I'm going to get a chance. If I'm good enough, maybe I'll get a chance to play. And fortunately, I got a chance to get drafted and signed, and I was only going to play for a few years if I didn't get to the big leagues. And I wrote my mother a letter when I was my first spring training. I had met some guys in camp with the Pirates that were 29 and 30 years old that still never been to the big leagues, still playing minor league baseball.
Yeah.
And in the letter I wrote my mom, I said, I'm going to play for 3 years. If I don't get to the big leagues, I'm going to go back and use my education. 50 years later, I was still in the game.
Oh, what was your major, by the way? What were you going to do if you didn't?
Well, I was in education.
Okay, so
I
you're
majored in sociology, and so I would end up probably teaching phys ed. But I love sports, love to coach, and so there was a time, Laura, when I was playing in the minor leagues where I said, if I want to coach this sport. And so I'm going to learn what every position is. And again, I was very, very fortunate to be in an organization. I was with the Dodgers at the time, where in spring training, you're having, dinner with Maury Wills, Koufax, Don Drysdale, Wes Parker. So there wasn't a phase of the game. I used to sit out back when Roy Campanella was still alive. There was a place called Campy's Corner, and he used to take the catchers at night and talk catching in his wheelchair. And where else could you get that kind of education?
That's incredible. So, at what point when you're in the minors, are you like, okay, you talk a little bit about that transition to managing. What was that transition like for you, and how did that kind of come about?
Well, I had played, years and years ago, before there was minor league free agency. If you were in AAA, you were just hoping that, somebody would would get hurt, so you could get, so you could get called up and
Right.
get some time. But I was with the Dodgers. They had the same infield for 12 years, so there was no place to go, and I played with Ivan DeJesus, Jerry Royster, Bobby Randall, all guys who played in the big leagues, but we were just kind of stuck there.
Yeah.
And so Rafael Landestoy was one of my teammates for a long time, and so you were kind of. So there was a time when I said, okay, I'm probably not going to play in the big leagues, but if I get the chance, I sure would like to maybe try my hand at coaching.
Yeah.
And so in the minor leagues, and so I just got a chance. The minor league director, his name was Bill Schweppe with the Dodgers, for some reason liked how I went about things, and offered me a chance to be a minor league manager in the California League in Lodi, California, and the rest was history.
Was there anything that surprised you about kind of like doing that transition when you're finally managing and you have like these guys surrounding you, probably not that much older or younger rather than you are?
Well, I played my last couple of years in AAA. I was what they call the player coach.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I played for one of the great baseball minds that I've ever been around, named Del Crandall. And Del had managed in the big leagues. Of course, he was a great big league player. And when I got into this position, he said, first thing you have to understand is you got to stop worrying about playing.
Yeah.
So don't take any batting practice. Don't be out there taking ground balls. Be able to learn what it's like to be a coach. So, I started throwing a lot of batting practice, and I can't tell you, I think 2 years in a row I got activated in the middle of the season and hadn't had any batting practice. So, you go out and you hit that one morning and you're playing that afternoon. So, but that was the game back then. And so you ran with it, and it helped me as I went down the road to other people who wanted to get into the coaching side.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Green is a perfect example. And but if I took what I learned, and hopefully it's helped some other guys who end up being major league coaches and managers.
Is there anything about your playing style that kind of translates to your managerial style at all? Like, what type of player were you? And I mean, people know what type of manager you are.
Look at me. I'm 5'7". I weighed 145 pounds, 150 pounds. So in order for me to compete at the level in professional sports, I had to play harder than anybody else.
Right.
So there was never a time in all of the years I played that somebody said, hey, you got to run that ball out. There wasn't a time I didn't run a ball out. There wasn't a time I didn't come out and do what I had to do for to help the team win. I knocked second baseman down, and I was the second baseman. And I knocked the guy down one day, and he looked at me, he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just playing the game. He said, well, you know what? I'll be coming into you one of these days too. I said, well, that's the game.
Right.
That's what you got to do. And so, and if I backed down from it, I would have been out of the game a long, long time ago.
What gave you that confidence, the ability to be like, all right, maybe these guys are bigger, maybe they're stronger, but I can do this?
I was pretty good.
Yeah.
I was athletic.
You're good.
I could run. I was one of the things I could run, and I could catch it.
Yeah.
Back then, guys like me, if we hit the ball in the air, we got released. So we had to hit the ball on the ground, hit line drives, get on base. I had one year when I was managing in the major leagues, I had a player say, geez, when you played, how did you hit the breaking ball? And I said, they didn't throw me breaking balls. I was a little guy. I didn't have any power. They threw the ball down the middle. They said, we're not walking you. Here, hit this. And so, so
use your strength.
Exactly. And that's what they did. They didn't walk little guys that didn't have any power. Everybody said, well, you got to take pitches. Yeah, well, counts 0-2 before you could blink.
Right.
Because, they everybody pounded the strike zone back then. So you had to play the game right. And that's what I thought I did. I thought I played the game right. And when I got into coaching and managing, I wanted that same effort out of my players.
Yeah.
So, and not everybody's the same. There were people that turned off by the intenseness that I had to do my job. And I understand that. That wasn't that I didn't like them, but I just thought there was a way to play the game. And I've always said, I've told the players, anytime I've given a speech, the one thing I wanted when I was managing is when a father would take his son to a game and watch my team play, that he left the stadium and he'd tell my son, that's how you play.
A really good inside look at the career of Terry Collins, and we'll have part 2 of that special talking with TC next week right here on the show. Now it's time for another installment of Never Forget, featuring the stories of those who experienced the tragedy of the September 11th attacks. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation documentary, Never Forget, How Baseball Helped New York Heal is currently airing on the streaming service Fox Nation. Each week this season on our show, we'll hear from ball players, front office personnel, broadcasters, or reporters on their personal 9/11 story. 25 years later, we must all never forget that tragic day. New York Mets Hall of Famer Al Leiter was on his way to Pittsburgh to pitch a ball game for the Mets when the world stopped that September morning. Here is Al Leiter's story, and directly after that, we'll tell you about another T2T hero, Sergeant Jason Walker. So let's go to that right now.
My 9/11 story is pretty damn unique. My oldest, who just had done kindergarten, she was starting first grade, drive to the school, drop her off, honey, okay, it's gonna be okay, I'll see you in a few days. Get in the car, head out to LaGuardia, get on the plane. I'm pitching that night. We're taxiing, and the pilot comes on and says, oh, God, everybody, they're shutting down LaGuardia right now, just hang tight. Folks, we're getting some reports back that maybe a helicopter hit into the World Trade Center. Airspace right now is being suspended. Just hang tight. I'm like, oh, uh-oh. Folks, not even 5 minutes later, we're going back to the gate. Collect all your belongings. LaGuardia Airport is being evacuated. I'm like, oh my God, I'm pitching tonight. I haul ass. I'm running up in LaGuardia. And just as I walk up, I look up, and there's monitors as you're getting into and I see a plane go into, I'm like, what the hell was that? And they're like, oh my God, there was a plane, and there's another one. So to see the second one, I was like, holy mackerel. So I called Steve Phillips, who's our GM at the time. I was like, Steve, man, I'm sorry, but I'm in New York, and I'm pretty sure we're not playing a baseball game tonight. And he's like, Al, don't worry about it, whatever. Like, he basically, like, if we are, we'll figure it out. My oldest daughter, she's like, Daddy, how do you know they're not going to hit our building? And I'm like, no, honey. There's military now, and they're flying around New York, and it won't happen. But that was the feeling. It was like, when's the next one? It was personal. People who were from this area, and I know the world grieved and the country grieved, but it was a whole next level of, they hit us. They hit us.
The Tunnels to Towers Foundation embodies the best of America, taking care of those who took care of us. Today we gather to celebrate a hero, a veteran who gave so much for our country.
Sergeant Walker, on behalf of the Tunnel to Towers Foundation and the Silla family, we are proud to welcome you home.
Wow.
We are here to give a house to Jason Walker, a smart home recipient that has sacrificed his well-being for the sake of our country so that we could live in freedom. And this house is going to give Jason some independence and dignity back in his life.
It was my second tour to Afghanistan. I was a bomb finder. We were out on a dismounted patrol, and we were crossing a ditch. And the landmine was on the other side. I wound up losing my left leg.
Oh man, that's beautiful, wonderful.
My family background is mostly Navy. My mother served, my father served. I was the first Marine in the family. I knew as a younger age, like, yeah, I'm going to serve. It was, for me, it was just a calling. This house, it's overwhelming when you look at it. To be able to own a home, which is what every American's dream is to have their own home. They can say, this is mine.
I didn't realize how big it was gonna be.
The roll-in shower is definitely a huge plus. I mean, it's huge. The fact that the stovetop can move up and down, everything's kind of where it's easy level for me to reach from my chair. Tunnel to Towers has been like family. They changed my life. The motto of let's do good is really something they do.
By giving $11 a month, you're joining us on our mission to do good. Go to t2t.org to make a positive impact.
You can watch the entire documentary, Never Forget How Baseball Helped Heal New York, exclusively on Fox Nation. Next week, we'll feature another Never Forget story right here on the show. And now, courtesy of Coachs Collectibles, our partner who sells the wonderful memorabilia, we have our special interview with an iconic Met. And right now, we have a very special interview brought to you by our friends over at Coachs Collectibles. He is best known for his 9 years with the New York Mets from 1985 to 1993. Our guest is a member of the 1986 World Championship team. He's a two-time All-Star, a two-time Silver Slugger winner, a three-time member of the 30-30 Club. And because of his contributions, both on and off the field, he received one of the Mets organization's highest honors by being inducted into the team's Hall of Fame in 2023. We'd like to welcome to the Terry Collins Show, Howard Johnson. Hojo, great to have you here today.
John, good to see you, buddy. Glad to be here.
Well, welcome. We were talking off air about the proximity of where your academy is and to where I am in Middle Tennessee. I had no idea. I knew you were involved with baseball somewhere here in Middle Tennessee. I live in the town of Franklin. And when we were doing some research about the interview, I discovered that I could literally walk out my door, take a right-hand turn, go up to the corner, make another right, and you're across the street. So you're a quarter of a mile from where I am right now. It's crazy.
It's crazy, man. It is crazy. I know. It's where I'm at right now. I'm in the facility.
How long have you
Beautiful
been down
place.
here?
So I used to live full time in Nashville. We moved here about 15 years ago. And my son and I basically took over this building and created Showtime Sports Academy as it is today. It's completely different than what it used to be. And we've had it for about 10 years. So it's been a lot of fun being a part of it and watching kids get better and, seeing the players that come through here and get some pro guys in here also. They work out here in the spring and the fall and the winter. So it's just been fun to be able to work with my son and just watch what basically he's built, because he's the one that does the day-to-day stuff and takes care of everybody here. And it's gone real well. And I really enjoy it. I enjoy teaching kids and working with kids and parents and trying to, develop the game here in Middle Tennessee as much as we can.
Yeah, it's a great thing that you're doing. And there are some great athletes, youngsters in this whole area. I mean, there's been a lot of MLB players that have come from Vandy and other schools in the vicinity. So I'm sure you run across some kids who really have some great potential.
Oh yeah, we see kids come in here now for the last several years, and they've gone either through our program or other programs and they come in here and train. And it's a lot of fun just to see how they've improved from year to year, how they've gotten bigger. First of all, I can't believe the size of these kids. And just to know that, they're in a baseball hotbed. I mean, Nashville and Tennessee in general is very strong in that regard. And Knoxville with UT and everything, and Vandy here in Nashville, there's just a lot of baseball, a lot of softball, a lot of everything. Sports is big here. And it's fun. It's fun to watch kids grow. They come in here, they learn. We've got kids in here as young as 6, 7 years old that train. And before people get freaked out about that, it's not training like, we do as older guys, but they're in here working and they're trying to get lessons. They come in here to work on their game every day. Some of them, our travel teams and stuff. So it's fun to watch it. And you really develop roots here when you do that, because people know who we are and they come in here and they have an expectation of what they're going to get. And, we're happy to provide it.
Yeah. And the community feel here, like you said, there are so many Major League Baseball players that come from this area, and those who may have not come from this area but live in this vicinity. I know Steven Matz was here. And I think they're moving back down to Florida. He and his lovely wife with the band Tane. So there are so many that are here. It's a wonderful place to be. here 26 years now, and even though I'm a born and bred New Yorker, I go up there very frequently. My family's up there, and I get, of course, to see the Mets when I'm up there.
Yeah.
I love it here, and it's a great place.
It's a nice area. Yeah, it's
It
really
is.
nice. Have you ever been to Maniacs over here and had chicken over there?
I have not. Where is
Oh
that,
my
Franklin?
gosh. It's not far. It's about quarter mile from where we are right now.
Oh,
Right
okay.
right on Seaboard. Right by the cotton, like you're heading towards Costco.
Yeah. I know exactly where it is, but I didn't even know there was a place there.
Oh yeah, it's called Maniacs. You got to check it out. It's pretty good.
I will. I absolutely will.
Just
Definitely.
a shameless plug. The reason I said that because me and the rest of the team, we're going there for after the podcast.
Oh, are you?
To grab
Very
lunch.
cool.
Yeah, it's good.
Very
and
cool.
also want to say one thing. Next door to us is Chadwick's. Chadwick's is a training facility that team up with us on many, many projects. And a lot of guys go in there to lift and do stuff, and then they come over to our side and they hit and throw and do all those things. So it's a good marriage. They provide a big space, and it's nice to have them there. A lot of our kids take advantage of that.
And then Chadwick is still running it, correct? Is he still running it?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, because he's been a staple down here for a few decades. I think.
Yep.
He started off small and built it up, and I knew a mutual friend of his years ago. But yeah, it's a wonderful place. You've been a really busy guy, not just with, of course, the academy and everything that you're doing there, but you've actually launched your own podcast on the '86 World Championship Mets, and it's the 40th anniversary, obviously, and it's through a company that I believe is KinersCorner.com. So explain to us how that happened, and that you're now in the podcast world.
Well, Mark Roseman, he's the one that started it, and he reached out to me earlier this year, back in January, February, talking about what he'd like to do to kind of celebrate the 40th anniversary, go back to '86 and just kind of relive week by week, starting in spring training, kind of the players, whatever Davey was doing, Frank Cashin, whatever really was of interest during that week, and just try to go through it and give fans an in-depth view of what it was like that year. We started a little bit in '85, at the end of '85, and we're well into '86 now. And we've had some great guests. Wally Backman was on yesterday. He'll be, his episode will air probably in a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks.
How was that?
Oh man, awesome! It's always good to see Waldo. And we just went through stuff, game by game for the week, but just highlights of what happened that week, and what our thoughts were on everything, and just kind of we did that from the beginning of the season, and just touched on little things and things that kind of like what you're doing, like things that fans don't know maybe that we were thinking, or things like that. Mark does a great job hosting that, and he asks really, really in-depth questions, and we just try to give our view of things and just have some conversation back and forth with our guests. And it's been a lot of fun, and I really enjoy doing it.
Yeah, it must be. And that team, that personality. There is nothing like it. I mean, it's 40 years. It must not seem 40 years to you and the guys that were associated with that ball club. For me, it was a magical time following that team. And in '86, I think I was at 60 home games.
Wow, it's pretty good.
And all the playoff games, obviously.
All the playoff games. I was going to ask you, were you there for the playoff games? So that's good. So that's good baseball.
Oh my goodness, yeah. It was just kind of seeing that team build, and once they acquired you from the Tigers, and all those pieces started coming together. It was just kind of this magical time, and the confidence that the team had, especially going into '86. And but I mean, you look at every member on that squad. The fiery personalities from Lenny and and Wally and Keith and Doc and Daryl and yourself and Ray Knight and Gary Carter and everybody. It was something that I certainly hope Met fans get to experience again. 40 years is a long time, but
It is a long time.
that 86 team will never ever be forgotten. I mean, it's
Well, the podcast. Fortunately, the podcast does a good job with that. I mean,
yeah,
I know you guys do a good job of that with baseball and stuff with TC.
yeah.
We try to bring the flavor of what was happening, and just let guys be themselves. And it's a lot of fun to see everybody's memories. Of what what it was like back then. It was certainly crazy, but at the same time, we knew we had a great team. Davey was the right manager, and he pushed all the right buttons. Frank Cashin did a great job building it. So there's a lot to unpack in those podcasts.
Oh, absolutely. I am certainly going to be tuning in myself because I love hearing stories about the 86 Mets. You had a great career. You're on 2 world championship teams, the Tigers in 84 and then the Mets in 86, getting 2 rings by the time you were 25 years old, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, man. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you're 25 years old and you've gotten 2 world championships already. And that's, how many guys can say that? How many guys play all their lives and don't even get a taste of the postseason?
Not many.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to be on a team after that was able to win the whole thing. So it's kind of sad that we couldn't win again with that group, but certainly we left a legacy behind. And I know Met fans are hoping that the Mets nowadays get back to it.
Yeah. With both of those teams you were on, I mean, 84 Tigers, 86 Mets, I'm sure you get asked this a lot around the 86 Mets, but the 84 Tigers you were part of as well. What do you remember most about that Tigers team and then that Mets team, if you have one thing that sticks out in your head about both of those teams?
Well, I would say similarly, both teams really believed with a knowledge of we're going to do this. That's teams can say they believe they can win, or they hope they can win is what they're saying. Actually, we were not hoping. We were actually doing. And the 84 Tigers, we started off that year 35-5. We just had all the pieces kind of come together late. Willie Hernandez came over, I think the last week of spring training, maybe the last day. And I just remember he pitched in a game in Lakeland. I think we were breaking camp either the next day or the day after. And he mowed down he struck 3 guys out at like 9 pitches. And I just remember the feeling we had in the locker room that, gosh, we had just discovered, electricity. I mean, we had all the pieces basically to win. And Sparky did a good job of preaching the message that to be on that team, to have this group here, you had to be good. And that really stuck with me. I never forget him saying that in spring training a few times, like to be on this team is special because this is a very, very good team. And he used to say all the time that, you're going to win 60, you're going to lose 60. And it's the other, 42 or whatever it is that come into play. And, what you do at those games is going to be the difference. And the Mets were very similar in that regard. Davey, made statements in spring that, this was our time, that we were going to take care of St. Louis and win the East, win the division. And kind of the same message, we're going to win, our share of games. There's games in there that are going to be on the balance, and against certain teams like St. Louis, we had to take care of business against them. We were kind of built to beat them. And that's kind of the way you go about winning your division, is beating the teams in your division. That's the key. And I think a lot of teams kind of forget that, with the schedule the way it is now, you're playing so many interleague games, it's easy to kind of get away from that thought, but be better than the teams in your division. That's really who you're competing against.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very exciting teams you're associated with, and of course, no one will ever
and great players too, John.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I mean, you can't even imagine the quality of baseball, the players that were on both those teams together was unbelievable, really.
Yeah, and some miraculous stuff as well. I mean, when you look back at Game
Yes.
6, I mean, all you got to do is say to any Mets fan, Game 6.
Yep.
And if you were fortunate enough to be alive back then, and if you were even more fortunate to be there, Game 6 is one of the most historic games in the history of baseball. And when we had Jerry Seinfeld on
Yeah.
the show, he said something which I'd never heard before, but it really made a lot of sense. I asked him if he was there, and he said, "Yeah, we're sitting all the way on top." He flew in. He took 4 planes from Montana or something to be there,
Wow.
and he said the stadium was empty. We didn't leave. We sat there, me and my friends, and we were like, "How did that happen?
I
What
know.
did we just see?" He goes, "The World Series was over, and then it wasn't."
That's
You
right.
know?
That's right. It happened that fast. It
Yeah.
really happened that quickly. And even if you talk about Game 6, you can't forget Game 6 in Houston
Oh my God.
against the Astros, and
I
that
remember it.
we were on our way to Game 7, and then we weren't.
Yep.
It's unbelievable how fast things can change in a playoff game, in a series. One little thing happens. We were talking last night on the podcast with Wally, and one of the things about that 86 team especially was if you left the door open at all for us to come back, for us to start a rally, we were going to kick it in. I mean, I don't remember a game where a team left the door open and we didn't take advantage. I mean, through the whole season. That was just amazing what happened in that Game 6 of the World Series with Carter going up there, telling everybody he wasn't going to be the last out of the World Series, and just fighting his ass off in that at bat with 2 outs. Fallon pitches off. And by golly, he got a base hit to start the thing. And that was the spark really that got us going. And things happened so fast after that it was just, it's still a blur to me. But I can just remember Ray coming around third and being there at home plate, watching that.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible.
It was. I remember sitting in the field box, section 271, on the field level, and had season tickets that year. And then, of course, it was depressing. And then they flashed, congratulations, Red Sox
That's
on
right.
the scoreboard.
That's right. Yep.
And I looked at that, and I was with some business associates, and I was like, I can't see the Red Sox celebrate. Let's get
No.
out of here. Let's get out of here. And it was like, what do you mean, let's get out of here? The game's not over. And I was like, and all of a sudden
I
there's
know.
one hit, then a second hit, then the third, then Mookie. And then all of a sudden it's like, I can't, I get
Bedlam.
cold
It was
chills thinking
unbelievable.
about it. It was unforgettable. So
Yep.
what a magical time, and what a place in history you hold with the rest of that 86 team. And this year, the 40th reunion is upon us, and August 1st at Citi Field, there will be a reunion. And unfortunately, the skipper of the team, Davey, is no longer with us, which is so sad. What are you looking forward to most about that reunion? And if you can also share your favorite story about Davey Johnson with us, I'd appreciate it.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody, first of all, just seeing the guys and reminiscing about that time. And you see, it's funny because, we're all grown men now. I'm 65 years old. Keith, I think, is in his 70s. Ojeda might be 70 or getting up there. He's right close by. Just a lot of guys, a lot of friends I see, and we're all up there, and
Yeah.
we get together, and it's like we were still in the locker room, like we never left. The same lines we used to say to crack people up, we'd say, and just Keith was the guy, the leader on the field. Gary was there. Gary's not going to be there, obviously, with his passing, but just seeing all the players, and then to be able to go on the field at City and have the fans, celebrate us again, and just, for us to give back to them. Because the thing about 86, I will say also, that's a little bit different nowadays, is that everything was so organic. Like we would win games, guys would hit big homers, big hits or whatever. And the fans would start doing this curtain call stuff. And we would just, like, what are they doing? And guys would go out there and tip their cap. And it was just all authentic, organic stuff. It wasn't made up. It wasn't made for television. It was a relationship with the fans that we had that was growing from 85 on. And it just kept building. And, when you talk about Davey, one of my favorite Davey stories was when we were in the locker room prior to game 1 of the World Series, and we had just beaten Houston a couple days prior, and we had a workout at Shea, and Frank Cashin came in with a piece of paper from TWA Airlines and how they were going to find the team, like $30,000 or something for destroying the plane on the way back from Houston, which definitely happened. But it was just a moment where Davey took the paper from Frank and just tore it in like shreds and threw it up in the air and said, "Frank, I think this team has earned enough money for you guys to take care of that bill." And the whole locker room just started screaming. And I just remember Davey because he would always come back to the back of the plane where all the mayhem was happening, the card games, the guys were drinking and whatnot. This is all ongoing during the season. And he would come back there kind of half toasted and had that smile on his face. And guys would start screaming at him and throwing stuff at him. And he just came back there just to hang out with the players, man. He was one of us.
Yeah.
And that really, really came out. I mean, Davey was one of us and we were one of him. And so we did whatever he asked, basically.
Yeah. I could just imagine Cashin. He was so stoic. And for Davey to like rip that up and just
two opposites.
Oh, they were
two complete opposites, but they got along good. And it was always good seeing Frank. Frank was a mastermind, really, at building that team.
Yeah, it was an amazing time. Just a couple things before we let you go and enjoy your lunch. You were the first switch hitter to be a 30-30 player. I mean, first time. You had multiple 30-plus home run seasons, multiple All-Star game appearances, multiple Silver Slugger awards. You're a member of the Mets Hall of Fame. Out of all those professional achievements in the game, which stand out most to you, and what are you most proud of?
Wow, it's a good question. I get asked that periodically, but I never really come up with a good answer. They're all great accomplishments, and to be honest with you, I never thought that I could ever do those things. First of all, you hope you do. But when you finally get a chance to do it and play every day and put up numbers, things happen. And, the 30-30 thing came out of nowhere. I was asked after the 86 season when Ray left for free agency, the media would ask me, what are your expectations for 86? I mean, for 87, you're going to be the third baseman every day. And I said, well, I think that, I could hit 20 homers, maybe drive in 80 runs, steal 20 bags, maybe. And and they asked me how I based that. And I said, well, because my playing time's going to double at least. And I was, 10 homer guy, 10 stolen base guy, 40 RBI guy. So I came up with those numbers and, I got to those numbers kind of early in the season and they started throwing out this 30-30 thing. I never even heard of it. And I was I think I was the first or second infielder to do it. Maybe the sixth or seventh guy to do it in baseball history. And it happened. And I was just, dumbfounded the fact that I could do that. But I worked very hard at my game. It wasn't just going out there and playing. It was making it as much science as I could, studying pitchers, studying my jumps, all those things, working on those things in the off season. And I knew I also had to hit right-handed a lot more. That was my weakest side as a switch hitter. I'm a natural left-handed hitter. I knew Whitey, I knew Jim Leland, and all those guys were going to make me hit right-handed when it counted. And I worked really hard that offseason on my game from the right side. I wanted to make it so it was almost felt like natural, as much as natural as I could make it. And some friends of mine, Mark Steffens, we did some things that off season with hitting from the right side that really kind of unlocked it. I had my best season ever and never was able to duplicate it from the right side. I don't remember what my splits were, but if you look them up, they're off the charts great. And that was a very satisfying thing to be able to see hard work actually pay off right away. And then I would say the last personal goal would be being able to win in 91 the home run and RBI leader category for the league. I got an RBI my last game, my last at bat of 91. Keith Miller on second. I was batting. We were in Philadelphia, and Bruce Ruffin threw me a pitch fastball kind of in, and I inside outed it to right field for a base hit that drove in Keith, and that gave me 117 RBIs. And I was going into that game, I was tied with Barry Bonds and Will Clark. And so then it was just a waiting game to see what happened. We didn't have internet and stuff really back then. So I had to wait until Jay called me and told me that those guys didn't get any RBIs that game. So I ended up winning both legs of that Triple Crown, and something I never dreamed possible that could happen. But it did, and it's just, that was my last good season. After that, things started falling apart physically and just could never duplicate those years. But that 5-year stretch was pretty good for me.
Oh, you had a great run. You had a great career. You've done coaching. Are you still affiliated with the Mets in any other capacity? I guess you may be an ambassador or anything else that you do for them.
I do things. They fly us up for suite appearances and clinics and stuff like that. I do a lot of things in New York. We've created a foundation that's still not ready for public display yet, but we are doing a golf tournament this summer after the reunion on August 3rd. That'll be up in Connecticut, and we are excited about that. You'll hear more about that as we get all the details finalized, but it's happening.
Excellent.
And so I do a lot of things in New York. I feel very, very, very close there. I love the people, and I love being a part of the Mets there and doing stuff and getting to see all the guys.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a special time. It's probably like the best high school or college reunion when you get together with your teammates from
good.
that.
Just can't be drinking like we used to. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah. Well, I guess as you get older, everyone kind of gets a little bit tamer.
That's for sure.
But that was some party bunch. Everything you've read and the stories that could go on endlessly about the '86 squad. I mean, it'll always live in a fondness in every Met fan's heart. Before we let you go, tell everybody out there, and if there are any parents of kids in this Middle Tennessee area that would like to get some expert guidance from some of the best.
Yes.
How do they reach out to your academy, and then let everybody know where they could listen to your podcast?
Well, they can listen to the podcast at kinerscorner.com, and it's also on Facebook, I believe.
Okay.
And I know they posted on X, so it's out there. You can find it pretty easily. As far as like kids getting better and wanting to train or do whatever, they can always walk in our facility here, Showtime Sports Academy. We're off Seaboard Lane, and they can go online also and book lessons. Book the field. We have an unbelievable state-of-the-art facility here with, I want to say 18 cages, something like that. And we could pull those back, and we have a big space. You can do anything you want here. And we're trying to develop and get off the ground a velocity program, pitching, arm care, that sort of thing. That's in the works. So there's a lot of things you could do to get better if you're a kid or high school player, whatever, college player. We get all kinds of guys come in here. Pro guys come in here. So we have all the technology. They can come in and get whatever they want, and they'll be in good hands. All of our coaches are fantastic. They're either college experience, pro experience. So you're not getting, dads teaching, not to say that dads don't do a great job. They do. But you can come in here and get a different perspective on things, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing it and watching the kids come in here. And the reason I enjoy doing this so much is because my dad, who's still alive, he's 87, down in Florida, and when I was a young kid, he used to take me out every day and we'd hit and throw and he hit me ground balls and stuff. And I'd pitch and I'd do all these things. And my mom would catch sometimes or shag. And just the practice time, how valuable that was back then. It still is that today, maybe even tenfold. You have to practice the game. And we have a facility here that's indoor. So when the weather's bad in the fall and the winter, in the spring, John, how crazy it can get here weather-wise. There's a place here you can come train and work out, and there's no excuse not to get something in. And that's really the biggest thing I could pass on to kids is the value of practice.
Well, we certainly appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck, not only with the academy, but with the podcast. Those are going to be great stories, I'm sure, each and every episode. And,
Yes.
of course, that 40th anniversary coming up at Citi Field. I know I'll be there, and I can't wait for
Awesome.
it. Just to remember 86 and how special it was to every Met fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hojo, thank you so much for your time.
John, my pleasure, man. Anytime you need me, I'm here, okay?
Thanks to Don from Coachs Collectibles New York for getting Hojo for us. We really appreciate it. And this week, Coachs Collectibles, your go-to source for guaranteed 100% authentic and unique sports memorabilia, has some very rare Hojo items to add to your collection. This week, you can get an actual Shea Stadium seat back, signed and inscribed by Hojo himself, celebrating Big Shea and the 1986 Mets. The number on the seat is number 20, and that was Hojo's number. It is signed in silver. It is MLB certified as well. Also, a beautiful 16 by 20 custom graphic canvas of Hojo is also available. And there are those great Hojo replica 1986 World Championship rings available as well. Don't forget, use the code TCSHOW for free shipping, and also 10% of all sales go to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Upcoming events by Coachs Collectibles include the Watch Along on Saturday, April 25th. Hang out with both Edgardo Alfonso and Ray Ordonez as the Mets take on the Colorado Rockies. That'll take place at Bulls Smith's Tavern in Smithtown on Long Island. I saw the photographs of the watch along with Doc Gooden from this past weekend. It was jam-packed. So make sure you go to Coachs Collectibles New York. Follow them on Instagram. Follow them on Facebook. And then you could find out and where to make your reservations. That, once again, Bull Smith's Tavern, Smithtown on Long Island. Watch-alongs with some Mets legends. And be sure to also... a reminder, Howie Rose is doing a private signing for them. That takes place later this month. So you can pre-order items signed by Howie Rose. Go to coachescollectiblesnewyork.com. I do have to tell you about next week's show, once again, which you will not want to miss. We have a great one lined up. Joining us will be WFAN midday co-host of the Evan and Tiki Show, Evan Roberts. He also hosts the wildly popular Rico Bronya podcast, and if you're a Mets fan, that is a must listen to. And also joining him, host of SNY's Baseball Night New York and the Sal Licata Show, Mr. Sal Licata. Sal and Evan together. Opinions on the Mets will be on overdrive. Plus, Terry Collins returns and he interviews Mets skipper Carlos Mendoza, so that should be a good one. Don't forget to subscribe to the Terry Collins Show on your favorite podcast platform or on our YouTube channel. Just hit subscribe on the platform of your choice. And on YouTube, just go to youtube.com/The Terry Collins Show. That'll wrap up this edition of the program. Thanks to our creative director, Marsh, and to our researcher, Dominic DiBiase. For Terry Collins, this is John Arezzi. Thanks for joining us, and have a great week, everyone.